everybody. Welcome to Outlawed Thoughts, episode 54, Trump Pleads and Dirty Deeds. I'm here with
Woo.
Kareem Mays, as always. Late night stream tonight. Again, I got
Yeah,
work at,
buddy.
I
We
got
do it
work.
Alaska time.
Yeah, I got work at 11 tonight. It's like 8 p.m. here, so I can do
I
like an
got I
hour
got a
or
great
so.
I got a great thing for when now that Trump's out of the race, Dave Smith can get elected. I got a great business idea. We
Mm.
take over Harp, and then people call in. They're like, "Bruh, I want it to snow up here." I'm like, "How much money you got?" And then you see how much income they have, and then you're like, "Okay, I can make it for 10 grand. Make it snow. Just notify everybody on Facebook it's gonna snow, and then you can change the weather. It can be a weather changing business." Is that a good idea?
Yeah, that I don't know. I think if you have control of harp, you can just sort of like let everybody know anything at any point. That's sort of the point. We're gonna be bigger than Joe Rogan if you could control a harp. You can beam it through all the super Jew waves.
Oh, so you have your own waves.
Oh yeah, there's a different radio, everything.
Dude, you are Mossad. I'm pretty sure you're like hitting up Moshi, like, "Hey man, how's it go?" Yeah, they don't suspect a thing in the LP.
If I
Keep,
was Mossad, I would think I'd be getting somewhere.
you're like, keep bulldozing those houses of people. Say it's from a book.
Oh Jesus. So I thought tonight, as the title would say, we'd talk a little bit about Trump pleading
God.
not guilty, the whole indictment, that stuff. I listened just before this show, in fact, to his it's about 30 minutes, I think, or 40 minutes or so of actual speaking, which he gave right afterwards at Mar-a-Lago, which was him discussing the charges, the indictment, some other charges, giving sort of what I would call just his general opinion of the Biden stuff. Um, it actually, surprisingly, listening to this speech here, most recent one that he just gave, I thought it was great. I think it was worded really well. And it didn't have a lot of the Trump mannerisms that they say people have told me, those kind of things.
Yeah,
It was much more poignant and to the point and just in very calm, collected, and not read off a script. It didn't seem like super teleprompty, but it definitely seemed like a more maybe angry Trump. I don't know if maybe that's what he's like when he's a little pissed off. Heads up, Kareem, your webcam just
yeah, I know.
switched.
I'm fixing it. But yeah, I mean, maybe like my issue with this
Did you
is
listen to it at all, or
no,
we can
no, I didn't.
skim through it tonight. It's worth playing some bits and pieces of. But I thought it was and I've listened to a lot of Trump's more recent stuff. This was better than what he has been saying in the past. Now the problem comes back to, I don't know if as well, I recently listened to the interview of Trump Jr. on Tim Pool, which is about 45 minutes or so. And that first 5 minutes of that is just pure gold. Um, he does, in that little discussion, talk about that he disagreed with his father's opinions on the COVID stuff and a lot of the vaccine stuff. He talked about the fact that he was fine with taking powers away from like FBI, CIA. He looks at them as being, you know, bad at this point. Much worse than Trump would ever admit to in public. So it's interesting. It almost seems like Trump Jr. is um, a bit more militant against that kind of stuff even than his father is. To the extent, at least, that he's saying so. I don't know if that's just sort of a facade, but that's sort of what comes with all of these politician types, of course. Oh, hey, Samuel and JC, welcome to the party.
So I guess here's what I think about this. Um, well, this is going on. There's a lot of stuff going on in the background, and that's always what I look. When someone tells you, "Oh, look here, look, Trump indictment," I'm like, I just have a natural reaction. Okay, you're doing this. What are you hiding? Like, where is your deep state sleight of hand? Because I know every time they say, "Look at this," they're doing, and it works. It gets a lot of people like, "Oh, don't you know about Trump? Don't you know about?" There's something called the Restriction Act, which they're trying to pass, which will make going to certain websites and using a VPN illegal.
Yeah, I was actually going to be discussing that tonight on an interview I had
I would
invited
really
on.
love to see them do that. Like, hey, you have the wrong VPN. I'm like, all right, I have an AR-15.
So,
You got a problem?
um, I think we'll probably set it up for next week, but I should be speaking with Dylan Allman about that. He has a Twitter following. We follow each other on Twitter. I don't think he aligns with us politically, but he does have some opinions on the government that I read that were decent. So, I wanted to have him on, interview him, and talk to him about the Restrict Act because he's been talking about that a lot on Twitter. From my understanding of it, it's tied into the whole TikTok shenanigans, and um, you know, the reality is this is definitely like a Patriot Act 2.0 thing for the tech era. What I think a lot of people, I do think it's dead. I don't think it's something that's actually going to go forward because, from my understanding, the right people on the right and the left have both publicly said they're not going to support it. I don't think it'll get the numbers because you're not going to get enough bipartisan support to push it. That's the thing.
I don't
But I
think
do think
so.
they know that to an extent.
I don't think. Well, I say I don't know if it'll pass. I don't think it'll pass. The fact that they're trying to do this stuff and then they're using distractions is what bugs me because
Yeah, Samuel's 100% right in the chat. It is a test run. Like that, this isn't necessarily going to pass, but it gives them an opportunity to get feels out there to figure out who they have to turn to their side, who they need to threaten, who they need to pay. You know, I
yeah,
mean, we're in reality here. We know a lot of these politicians who don't back things will back things later on because they're persuaded behind closed doors.
yeah,
So
persuaded. Hey,
this gives them sort of a test run to see how the public reacts,
yeah,
see how the social media companies react. The other thing too is it has a chilling effect. So by putting this out there, social media companies might not tread into those waters that are listed as fast, simply because they know that the government is on that case and looking. So it's a double negative in the fact. So I don't like it all the way around, but at some point, like people are gonna have to realize that like we need to talk about it, get the information out there about the Restrict Act, try to fight against it and publicly. But the reality is there's nothing any single person can do about this. The government's like going to have to like the government's going to government, and this is what the government does. So no one should be surprised by things like this.
yeah. I'm not surprised. To me, how these psychopaths work and the deep state works is yeah, they test run things like, oh, let's see how people react, and then they pull back and then they push even harder, so it's kind of a push and pull thing. I don't think it'll work.
This is where I'm gonna disagree with the chat a little bit, and I know a lot of Mises people who are gonna hate me for this. So we're gonna read these chats, and then I'm gonna give my take. A lot of culture war stuff is also a distraction, even if even if I have my own personal opinions on things like trans ideology, child grooming, abortion, etc. That doesn't mean Republicans are my friends, and the laws they're trying to push are actually in my best interest. So, here's the thing. Um, I take the position that the ultimate goal of people in the liberty movement, and I'm talking about the liberty movement in general here, this does not mean strictly libertarian, strictly ANCAP, strictly anarchist, strictly ANCOM. It means a little everything. In the liberty movement, I look at it as there are liberty Democrats. I know some of them here in the state of Alaska, people who wrote books and worked years and years to write pieces of theory that brought some groups of Democrats more towards a liberty stance. I also know Republicans who did a similar thing. I've talked about Joe Vogler, somebody who was a out and out Alaskan nationalist and a separatist. So I'm not unfamiliar with that style of thinking as well. But the reality, in my opinion, is that cultural stuff is getting sort of looped in as the cultural movement or culture war. Well, okay, what are we referring to? Are you referring to woke ideology being in everything? Is that referring to the media, Disney, Universal, that kind of stuff? That's something that am definitely going to talk about in the future, either on this channel or another one. Are we talking about, like you stated, JC, the trans ideology, the abortion stuff, the grooming stuff like that? You could talk about the LGBTQ community, that stuff. The problem I have with putting those things in this cultural movement box is those things all affect politics. Politics all affect those things. And no matter where you want to talk about the stream going, which everybody likes to reference, and I have in the past, in reality, it's not a fucking stream. It's a test tube turner that has a bunch of water in it, and it's just constantly going like this. There's no pattern or array to it. It's completely random. And completely self-generated by the small cultural movements that exist within political movements. So the entire thing is cohesive off of each other. They're really the same thing. If the conservatives were in charge, whether you're talking about Republican conservatives, Libertarian conservatives, or whatever you might be speaking about, if those people were in charge, um, I think the media would be projecting it. But I don't think you're going to ever see that, at least not right now, uh, because they're not in charge. And so I do think cultural stuff matters a lot more than people give credit to. Now, abortion, some of those ones, I'll give you some credit on. Those are definitely used as more so cudgels by either side. But there's a lot of religious stuff that goes into the abortion argument as well, and that certainly is cultural. So it it's a weird argument, and I've taken a stance against even people like Dave Smith, who said in the past that the culture war stuff doesn't really matter. More so as the political war being waged, the changing America towards liberty, and those kind of sentiments. It's like, well, yeah, the reality is you're never going to turn the country towards a liberty stance without solving culture or involving culture in some way. Um, so yeah, I guess that's always been sort of my take on it, and I've made that take before on here, I believe. But I don't disagree with you, JC, in total. I'm just sort of expanding on it, I suppose. Um, oh, you're muted, Kareem.
Yeah, I made that point when I'm like, let's just talk about Yemen. And you're like, okay, I get it. But sometimes, like, you want to talk about, like, what people are seeing on their phones and things like that, not just
Well,
like, oh,
I've made a point with this show. If you go back and watch the earlier episodes, basically everything on this show was covering kind of political topics within my little tiny niche of libertarianism, something along those lines. I don't want that to be the case. This is a show that's going to cover kind of topics in general from around the internet, around what's happening in the world that people are going to be involved in or seeing in general. It's why I'm talking about the Trump indictment right off the rip, because that's what everybody's seeing on their television screens and needs information on and needs a better take on. So I think that's it. When Republicans are quick to push abortion ban laws, gay marriage ban laws, etc., they do it to self-sabotage conservatism by scaring moderates away from the GOP, making them seem like theocratic characters. I don't disagree with that, JC, but I think there's a lot of nefarious actors at the top of the GOP. These are like your neocon establishment types, and they will get all these other sort of gullible, retarded type um, GOP conservative, fresh people to sign on to their opinions behind closed doors. And because they have most of the power, they've been there the longest, they have most of the sway behind closed doors, most of the time that's going to happen. And so anytime you see somebody come along who's pushing a standard of liberty within the GOP, they're going to be stamped out. By the way, it's the same thing in the right. We're aware of that. But my case would be more so that you can definitely use the right to gain more liberty in a libertarian way. And that would be the way that I would put it. I think it's fully possible for a candidate to run as a Republican in a manner that they're attempting to win the office, to turn around and use that office for libertarian means.
You
So,
could, you can.
and there's nothing that you know morally I think wrong with that anyway. Put it that
No,
way.
no. Okay.
The same Republicans would never be quick to fix the economy and so on. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're definitely not wrong about that.
Would it be a weird take to say though, Leighton? I know this is gonna sound weird. I'm all about the weird, I'm all about the weird spiritual stuff and the chakras, and I wear my shunganite and I talk to you about EMF and stuff. And maybe I'm one of those crazier libertarians. Do you think there's a spiritual? I'm not saying like karma necessarily, but to me, um, I'm not saying like how do I put this? How do I put this in a good way? I think all the presidents in my lifetime, except Reagan because he's dead, should be arrested. Part of me is like, yeah, whatever. He got what he deserved, not for the right crime, but he still got it. Like, okay, Mr. Warp Speed, okay, Mr. Yemen, enjoy what you got. Like, I don't care. Like good riddance. There is a part
So
of me that
and
doesn't care.
and I yeah, I get that sentiment. The reality is that the problem here is if I was to take the accelerationist argument to its core, according to the theories that I've looked at and what I, kind of know about that kind of way of thinking, um, I would say Trump should get arrested. Let him get arrested. Let them charge him with the 30 felonies. Let them stick. Let them sentence him to jail time and put him in cuffs. Lock him up in New York City. Sit some Secret Service officers in his cell because that has to be done. And if you read the documents properly, um, you end up with a situation where you probably would accelerate into a light civil war that might compound into something much larger. And so the acceleration is boog type, outlook that you see online would probably say that's a good thing. The problem with that is that I don't necessarily know that it necessarily plays into reality because, um, right now I think there's a good possibility these charges might stick and he might be fucked. That is still definitely possible. And you know that the Democrats are going to be pushing for it, and some GOP Republicans are going to be pushing for it, the Mitch McConnells of the world. So,
Yeah. Well, the
um,
whole deep state is basically
yeah.
like other
So,
than
so the question becomes, why is the deep state pushing against Trump? Well, because the deep state establishment has become mostly left. And if the deep state establishment is mostly left or has a mostly progressive view, because progressivism is really the problem here, then this is going to be the outcome. The charges will stick. They'll put him in jail. They'll use the military and police force to squash the protests. And there's plenty of feds inundated within these groups already that most of them are already dead on arrival as is. So it's very possible that they arrest him and stop him from running. The GOP establishment, McConnell's of the world, know that they can rein in people like DeSantis, who's already an Israel loving cocksucker. So the reality is, I think that's
well, wait, you don't
probably.
like that? You're Mossad. You should be
Oh,
like,
yeah, clearly. So I think that's probably what will happen. Um, if I were to bet money on it right now, I'd say if the deep state does what they're attempting to do correctly, the charges will stick. He will not be able to run for president, or he will be confined to New York City. So he will not be able to parade himself around, which will greatly decrease his votes. The problem is I don't know if that backfires, right? If it backfires, he becomes president, he just pardons himself, pardons anybody else connected to it, and he's home free. All he's got to worry about then is going out Kennedy style, which is the other possibility. So
What if Dave Smith or Ye wins the presidency? Dave Smith and Ye are only
Dave Smith is not announced for presidency yet.
well, okay, Mike Termat.
Yeah, I will not vote for that guy, and I've given my reasons for that.
Okay. Well, I guess the only hope then is to be like, hey, you reading between
And
them?
I think what's his name just announced as well. That dipshit, the faggy looking one. He looks child. He has a shaved face and like, I don't know what's his name.
Jacob Hornberger?
Shit. Oh no, Hornberger's fine. That guy doesn't look like. Trying to think. He's the one split the vote. He
Joe
like
Jorgensen's our
ran
only
in
hope.
some. Jesus Christ, you're being no help here. The other guy,
Spike Cohen. How about Spike Cohen runs? I believe.
No, Spike Cohen's nah. There was a guy. There was a guy for
actually.
who. I'm so sorry that I'm drawing a blank here. He's like the dude who all the liberal caucus people have been saying they're going to support against Dave. Yeah, I don't know. That guy, I think, announced today too. He put up like a video edit.
Spike Cohen is the only man who can save America.
Spike Cohen, yeah, I don't know. I can't say what I really want to say about these people until late. And you know what?
All right, we'll turn off the live stream. I'm actually curious.
Give us Reed Coverdale if I'm being real with you. Yeah, Reed would be cool to run for something like that. I definitely think it'd be an interesting thing to see him do running as a kind of working man. I think that would resonate with people a lot in the U.S. For sure. That's coming from Sean Russell. And I'll be honest, like I would vote for Dave Smith. I've said before I won't vote for Mike Termat. I've given my reasons for that, and I'm willing to debate anybody who wants me to on those reasons. I do not think the presidential nominee of the Libertarian Party with the Libertarian next to their name should be an ex-cop, and I've made that pretty clear. And I talked to Adam Nutter about this a bit on his show and mentioned it to him. Adam Nutter was a cop, right? I love Adam Nutter. This guy's a friend of mine. We DM each other. We were back and forth. Right now, I'm doing stuff just for his other show, The Porcupine, and the new thumbnails and stuff. But regardless, it's like I have said before with him that I wouldn't support him as an LP presidential candidate. For the exact same reason I wouldn't support somebody like Mike Termat. It doesn't mean I won't talk to Mike. I wouldn't have him on the show. I wouldn't discuss what his opinions on certain inside baseball, more hard-hitting issues within the libertarian space are. And I think I'd probably be a good person to do that, considering I'm over here in Alaska. And it's a little bit different over here than what he might be used to dealing with. But the reality is that, my opinion isn't going to change over that interview just because he tells me, well, I was a good cop or what I did wasn't really bad or I disagree with the decisions I made in my past. Because the reality is, just like, you signed up for it. You took a job and you took a check from the state or federal government. And that's just the end of the bucket for me, man.
All right. To be fair, I'm being dumb. On stream because I'm a libertarian and I'm letting the spectrum go up a little bit. If I'm being honest though, in the grand scheme of things, whatever the deep state does, let them do. I say let Project Decentralization keep going, run for local office, and just block the feds there, and you're good to go. And if Dave doesn't announce, I think Spike is the best thing. If Spike doesn't announce, I guess Jacob Hornberger would be good. Shane Hazel.
So I'll go a little bit out of left field. I'd say
Joe Jorgensen's not
Dave.
terrible.
I'd say Dave Smith would be my number one. My number two would be Reed Coverdale. Um, my number three would be. I know this Benzo mentioned Clint. Clint's not a bad choice for something like that, but I'd say no. It'd be Dave. It'd be Reed, or it would be. Um, yeah, I really didn't like Hornberger's speeches all that much, and I've listened back to a lot of them recently. Yeah, Dave Reed would be good. Clint would be good. I mean, I honestly, I'd like somebody like people really aren't gonna like this, but like over in Texas, like Scott Horton, somebody like that, that was
Mm.
purely running to talk about the war effort and on that kind of subject because of the Ukraine stuff that's going on, and that's going to be in sort of the confluence running into 2024. So I could see all of those things working to some degree. Shane Hazel, who I still need to get on this damn show, I was supposed to interview before, um, is great. Shane Hazel's a great speaker. We saw him absolutely demolish fuckers in that debate. So I'd love to see that on a more grand field. But the other thing too is you got to talk about like, you know, what the goal is. Is the goal just to run a candidate that's decent for the Libertarian Party? Is the goal to get votes? Is the goal to actually try to split the vote? Because to me, for the Libertarians to really do something, their goal should really be to disrupt the vote as much as possible. And I don't care whether that means letting the Democrat win or the Republican.
Yeah,
Um,
actually, you know who I'd run if I didn't have anybody from the right, if we're going to do left and right. I'm starting to agree with my friends more like, why are you always doing left? But I think it helps categorize certain economic systems. You know who I'd still run it if all those, if Dave Smith says no, if Spike said no, Joe, dude, I don't even hate Joe Jorgensen. I just don't think she's that great. Um, but one person I know that's an excellent speaker, that's funny, like, and now I listen to him a lot, is Jimmy Dore. Heck,
yeah, no.
I honestly,
Yeah, no. No, with a big bucket of no, with an extra spoonful of no, and a truckload of no. Jimmy Dore is fun to listen to, and his news show can be decent. His politics are out the rear end. The guy doesn't
are
know
they?
anything about economics. The guy doesn't know anything about how the
Fine,
actual world works. He talks about war
that's
issues
good.
well. That's it.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of all I need.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
here's the
Scott
thing,
Horton again. But he also
but
has
every
the opinion that
Scott Horton's good at economics, I would
yeah, that's
assume,
my
because there's a
point.
bunch.
So he's already better on those points, and he has a decent
Okay,
sized
okay,
following.
fine, but okay, here's my issue. Here's my
Fucking
issue.
Jimmy Dore is a
Um,
leftist.
yes, he's a leftist. I get it. Here's the thing. Everybody but the Austrians and Mises, literally everybody about the Austrians and Mises suck on economics. Conservatives suck on economics. Like, I don't even use economics as a thing. If someone's like bad at economics, I'm like, okay,
I
fine.
don't want
They're bad.
somebody who can use economics on the public stage. I want somebody to become president who understands economics, which isn't fucking Jimmy Dore. I've listened to him speak.
Uh, there could be, what about, actually, I agree with JC. Okay, how about RFK Jr.? We could do
Yeah, if
that.
RFK was going to sign up and run as a libertarian, it's the Vince Vaughn shit all over again. Like if Vince Vaughn was willing to become the libertarian candidate for president, I'd say run him because both of them would get an insane amount of votes. If RFK,
Or Woody Harrelson.
fuck Woody Harrelson. I
But
have some
people got,
inside hatred for Woody
what?
Harrelson.
Dude, Woody Harrelson was
It's not about
hilarious on
it's
that
first
stuff.
off that was a written scripted thing. Woody Harrelson um has a rep he
He's a
has a
good actor.
reputation, and I had family that have had interactions with him in California. He was a shithead then, and he's a shithead now. It's the same.
Isn't he an
He's
anarchist though?
nothing. He's whatever you want him to be to pay him. It's whatever sounds cool to
Okay.
Hollywood people. He likes to be different. So people like that will metamorphosize their politics to be whatever the fuck you want it to be. That thing he did on SNL was entirely scripted. It was written beforehand. Woody Harrelson is fine, and I'd vote for Woody Harrelson over Joe Exotic, unironically. Benzo Barbie is fucking absolutely right. Also, we're going to talk about that stuff here because I clowned the Tiger King guy, and A lot of people didn't get to see it because the tweets didn't go as viral as I wanted them to, but they were
Why you
great.
gotta make this so hard, Leighton? Like, just okay, dude. If someone's not perfect, like let's say they're goofy or at this point, like or they're bad. If someone's just bad on economics, that's not to me even that big of a deal. I'm like, okay, you suck at it. Or if someone's bad at like certain things, I'm like, I'm willing to overlook some stuff now. Before I used to be like, oh my god, sales tax,
Woody
like
Harrelson's father, I think, killed like multiple people. He was a legit killer. Like the movie, there's a movie Woody Harrelson was in. I love that. Listen, I love Woody Harrelson's acting. I absolutely do. But I happen to know some like more inside stuff about like his just demeanor and attitude towards people. So I don't trust him, and I think he's an actor, and actors are actors.
all right, I'll run for president. How
How
about
old are
that?
you,
Since we
Kareem?
can't uh
Yeah,
you
that's what
know.
I thought, bitch. You're not old enough, neither am I, otherwise I'd run. You think I wouldn't run as a libertarian for president just to see if I could get the nomination within the party? I would be fun to just get to debate the fuckers. Debate within the libertarian party. I'd do it in a heartbeat. I'll do it when I'm old enough, I'm sure. Um, Natural Born Killers, yeah, that's the movie I'm thinking of. Yeah, he was sort of channeling his dad in that. But yeah, he was a hitman assassin for the mafia. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean the reality is like I think RFK Jr. would be interesting if he'd be willing to run as a libertarian, people like that, because of the names they would bring in. Again, you'd be able to garner a lot of votes, and they might shoot him, in which case, the
Oh my
acceleration
god.
thing kicks in. Um,
And shoot
so
him. This is too
they gotta
soon, man.
fulfill the prophecy. There's still time.
Well, there's a prophecy now, but they probably believe it.
Old age
But
hasn't taken him yet. He's gonna be like,
you know who joked about running? Alex Jones. Alex Jones said he's not running. Okay. What if Ye wins? What if Ye wins? Is that cool?
Ye's not even
How
running for president. If he does,
oh,
I
he
don't think
isn't?
so. If he does, it'll be a complete flop. I mean, he'll get some meme support, but the political establishment will destroy him. We're never going to debate stages of any kind, and that'll be the end of it. Um, it's probably going to come down to either DeSantis versus Biden Harris again, or it's going to come down to Trump versus Biden Harris again. I know people think that's insane, but that's just what I see happening. I do think Trump is probably going to pick, if I had to decide right now who his VP pick is going to be, um, it's either Carrie Lake or
Yeah, I would agree.
it's Rand Paul. And there's two reasons why I believe that. The first is Carrie Lake is an obvious choice. She's female, but it doesn't look like a pick for like some kind of race position because she's still white. So Trump doesn't have to answer to the people who are calling him woke for choosing her. Um, and he can use her. She's very good public speaker. She'll definitely be everything Pence wasn't. Pence was very closeted, didn't talk very much because he's a closeted gay man. But Carrie Lake is open about politics and talks about it constantly and is very public. So I think she'd be good for that. I think Rand Paul would be his second choice and could get picked for a number of reasons, but the main one being that he was the most boisterous on the Senate and on these positions against COVID and specifically against Fauci, which, if you're Trump and you're the guy who introduced the vaccines and actually introduced a lot of the stuff and didn't fire Fauci, you can look at as sort of a mea culpa to that community saying, hey, to the anti vaxxers saying, hey, I know that I fucked you guys over because this whole thing got implemented because of me, so I'm going to pick the guy who knows best how to destroy that and has been the most public about it.
Mhm.
I think it's far more likely Carrie Lake gets the pick because she's
Oh yeah,
a clear choice to me and has been hanging around Trump for a while at this point.
could be a number of people. I could think of a number of
Maybe I'll
people. It
just
could
choose
be.
yay, throw curveball. Really, America needs is they gotta be good on 9/11. If they don't got that, it's still circus unicorn, but we need real change. Yeah, I agree with you there, but so much of the stuff from the past that we recognize as being conspiratorial or being wrong, we're all going to have to accept is just never going to be allowed to be public. Um, they slipped up back in the day with things like MK Ultra. Those kind of things became public. That doesn't really happen anymore. Past the 90s, that shit got locked down under the digital era. And the reality is, a lot of the details on these things will not come out till hundreds of years later, likely. And that's just how it is. People are going to have to accept that. And there's a lot of years I could talk about and ramble on for hours, never come to any consensus on them. And that's the problem, is because of that, it makes it a little harder to talk about. But, and easier for them to obfuscate behind, hide behind. So I guess furthermore on the whole Trump thing, I think this is likely to stick in some way, but I don't know if it stops him from running. I think it likely hampers his campaign, though. And so I think that's one of the main goals. We will have to sort of see as things progress. I know Trump's probably going to be looking at trying to delay this as long as possible, which is sort of a clear choice. So we'll have to see how that goes. But the left is super excited about this, and I think they're excited for all the wrong reasons, because I think this could spin into chaos pretty quickly, as far as like the culture goes and how people react to this. So that's a bit scary. Um,
I
yeah.
agree.
And then I guess what are some other public stuff that's going on we could talk about? I have a story I can bring up, I think, on my phone. Um, anything
We haven't.
weird happening?
Well, we haven't talked about the Shaman got released.
Oh
So
yeah, the
and
QAnon.
Andrew Tate's on house arrest if you care.
Andrew Tate's on house arrest, and the QAnon shaman got released. Oh yeah. Let's talk about this
I'm
one.
sorry. I'm sorry. Not Andrew Tate. Dick Masterson.
By the way, I got retweeted again by him.
Dick Masterson.
Yeah, making fun of Vito, his co-host, who, by the way, I'm gonna publicly state this. I challenged Vito to a debate in regards to free speech absolutism. Now, on this show, we've talked about free speech a little bit in the past. I've had a couple whole episodes on this. But the reality is that Vito claims to be a free speech absolutist. He went on the show with Dick, and they were on The Biggest Problem in the Universe. Great show. Go check it out. And I love the show, and I love Vito to death. The guy's funny as shit.
What
I
do they
mean,
talk about?
a lot of people hate the guy because of his because he's the one that joked about the whole fucking cutie shit and said a bunch of stuff about that. The reality is the guy was legitimately, I think, trying to be funny, and he doesn't really know how to. He got swept up in shit real easy, and he gets triggered fast, which is why I think he's good on the show. But regardless, um, him and Dick started debating back and forth about free speech absolutism, because the guy in New York had got charged for like posting a meme saying that you should vote by text, and he got charged for it and shit. So they were debating that, and Vito brought up like the fire in a crowded theater argument and horse shit like that, and it was just really fucking aggravating. So I went to Twitter and I was like, debate. Like, I'll come on, we'll debate each other. Dick can moderate, right? Dick Masterson retweeted that. Vito did not respond. Then, like 2 days later, this is just yesterday, um, Vito put this tweet up, quote tweeting another guy who posted a video of people encouraging people and helping them steal carts full of shit from like a convenience store, like a box store. I think it was a Walmart or Target or something. And Vito was like posting, basically saying, "Oh, I don't give a fuck what these billionaire corporations lose. That's why these people are helping them." And I post the response that said, basically, eventually those bigger retail establishments are going to put stop gaps in place that make the shopping experience worse for everyone. You're going to hate it when you show up and can't actually buy a product because it's been stolen and they're no longer shelving it. And on top of it, what do you think is going to happen when those stores do put in measures to stop them from stealing? They're going to turn to the smaller businesses. And I got in a little bit of an argument with one of the guys in his thread, who I absolutely demolished on that topic, who kept trying to basically say that's not how people operate. They wouldn't move on to smaller businesses. It's a moral thing. And I said, no, I mean, the reality is if the bigger stores figured out a way to stop these people from stealing, they would be moving to smaller and smaller businesses. The same states are the ones with the Senate fucking controlling and governors who told everybody, well, just do it from the insurance during the summer of love. The insurance will cover it. It's like, okay, that might work for the giant establishment. It doesn't work for the $50,000, $60,000 small retail establishment, which were fucking raided and were ransacked. So it pissed me off, and so I went, down that route. Vito deleted the tweet rather than respond to what I was saying. So I have to assume at this point he hasn't blocked me on Twitter yet. So I'm gonna call in and leave a voicemail for the next part of the problem episode, and I'm gonna write it tonight, and I'm gonna make it beautiful. And yeah, we'll see whether he responds on the show or if they play it. Let's see how that goes. But no, it was a fun little rant on Twitter, and then yeah, that tweet, was liked by a bunch of people that I'm familiar with from the show and stuff. No, Dick's great. I've followed Dick around the internet for a while now, so
What
I'm
does
sure
Dick do even?
he has a show. He does a podcast and radio show. He does, I think, IT work also, or something
What does he
like
talk
that.
about?
Or software work, I think, is actually what he does.
Okay. What does he talk about?
Mainly cultural stuff that's happening in the news, just random stuff.
Is he a libertarian, conservative?
I think he himself considers himself. I think he was a Trump supporter, but he still considers himself more like conservative, libertarian-esque, in that range. Sort of like Nick Rekieta.
Does he still hold the same views on Whammons?
Well, the character that he played, he wrote a book called Men Are Better Than Women. And it's fucking hilarious. It was sort of meant to be a joke, but it's written in character. And it has actual stats in it. So it's sort of like half a joke, but half real. So there's like all these joking things, but then actual serious like relationship stats and shit slipped into it. It's fucking great. And then, he had this show where he talked about that sort of stuff. But he has a blog, a website called menarbetterthanwomen.com, which you can still go to today, that posts articles and his own personal opinions about some of the stuff happening in the world in sort of a comedic way. But no, I think he's a bit of a light chauvinist. That's how I'd word it.
Oh, a light show.
I like a Coke Zero of the diet a Coke Zero of the chauvinist world.
And he created the Andrew Tate character.
He created the Dick Masterson character, and Andrew Tate created Andrew Tate based in a big way off of that character.
Do you feel it's kind of like a Dennis Leary, Bill Hicks thing? Like, yeah, this is my thing. Okay,
oh, that's exactly how I think it happened. I think he saw his character on Dr. Phil and said, oh, I could do that on YouTube.
Or on TikTok or on Instagram.
Well, on everything. He just imbibed the embodiment of Dick Masterson.
Well, I think the funny thing is when Dick Masterson did it, it looks like the 90s or the 80s. So
It's
this
like
was
I think it was the early 2000s actually. The
okay, the
footage
early.
is dog shit.
Still, that's a huge amount of time from what's happened to where it's at now. So I think a huge amount of time lapsed, and you know, given the current cultural climate, this is why culture matters. When Andrew Tate came in with all saying all this stuff, people are like, oh, men have been talked down to for so long that yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Andrew Tate has a lot of good things to say. I do think he's a bit of a sleazebag. And I think a lot of the background stuff he did probably isn't illegal, but also probably isn't that good. So I
Yeah.
think there's sort of a give and take to it. I do think that, like, men need to, like, understand how, like, that sort of message translates to reality. Because a lot of the guys that listen to him don't go out into reality. They're sort of in this kind of coddled existence. But if you're actually involved in the outside world and you absorb his content, I think it can be useful. In the same way Jordan Peterson is. I mean, there's nothing really different than what they said, except for the fact that Jordan Peterson went fucking crazy, and so far Andrew Tate hasn't. Although he does have a clip, and I don't know if you watched it, which I definitely disagree with, of him saying he'd fuck a tranny. That was a bit questionable.
Andrew Tate or Jordan Peterson.
Tate. Yeah, not the one you expected me to say, huh?
Like
I
I'm
mean,
gonna use your pronouns.
I assume that Jordan Peterson is a bottom taking 9 inches of pipe every night.
Oh
But
my god.
the reality about Tate is he didn't give off that vibe, but he's in this clip basically ranting about
Sex with Jordan Peterson would be weird. It's like, what do you mean by
sex
sex?
with Jordan Peterson is just fucking a skeleton.
I feel like Jordan Peterson drives me crazy sometimes because like people are like, what's your favorite color? It's like depends what
Benzos
you mean by favorite. Depends what you mean by color. See, there's a substructure in Jung's hierarchy that says if you analyze particular substrata, I'm like, dude, stop. You can just say blue. Like
Benzo, your dick is bigger than Jordan Peterson's. I'm just saying.
hey man, you need to sort yourself out.
Shit. 19th Amendment roundtable with Dick Masterson, Andrew Tate, and Dickie Walnuts. Dude, if I ever could facilitate a fucking podcast, let me tell you, if I could get a podcast with Cole, me, Dickie Walnuts, Toad, and fucking Dick Masterson, Andrew Tate, that would be the 6-person stream that I would facilitate. Fucking, it would be the most fun on the fucking internet.
You
It
know,
would
be
be
the most
internet.
fun stream. I'll give you a fun stream. Dan Berman, Vermin Supreme, and Ted Kaczynski. No,
Jesus Christ. Vermin Supreme. What does he have to do with any of those guys?
he would be a great podcast. That'd be a good
Vermin
podcast.
Supreme is a marketer. All right, let's like be clear here. The guy is he wants to be a politician. He's a wannabe politician who doesn't want to actually be a politician. He just wants to perpetually run so that he can generate a social media following X dollars.
What are you gonna do? But whoever runs, you know what they have to do?
Yeah, what?
Pardon Uncle Ted because he was a nice guy.
I'm gonna worry about Assange and the rest of them first. Look
Well,
up
I mean,
Cleo
both of them,
Peterson's
but
dream about his grandma. Oh no, I remember that. I saw that on fucking Twitter. That was some weird shit. I don't know what that quite. The Rubicon might be crossed with the grandma thing. That might be on the same level as the tranny screwing clip of Tate
oh
talking
my
about.
god,
Basically, he says if I was looking at a chick who was exceedingly ugly and a really hot trans chick, I'd fuck the hot trans chick. Which I believe is a completely unprincipled argument to make if you're a quote alpha male. So there's a lot of problems there. And it always seems like all these alpha male manosphere types like taking dildos up the ass or like going 69 for 69 on camera like old Jack Murphy over there. So I'm a bit hesitant to jump in bed with these guys because under the mattress might be a bunch of sex toys that have been inside of them rather than the girls that they're with. Just saying. So, Kareem, you look like a deer in the headlights right now.
God, I just
Do you not,
no.
Kareem? Kareem, come on. Are you an alpha male? Are you
Here's
an alpha male? Are you? Come on.
here's what happened. I was
No, no, no.
watching.
I need an answer to the question. Are you an alpha male?
I don't know Jesse Lee Peterson. Are you?
Sure. Are you? You gotta say yes or no for this to work.
I'll I'll come back. I'll come back. It depends what
You
you mean by
fucking whore.
alpha.
I
It
was gonna
depends.
ask you if you had dildos under your mattress,
No.
Kareem.
What I was gonna say is, I hate. This was an awkward thing. One of my boys, Max, posts this, thing of Blair White. And I'm like, God damn, yeah. And I saw it on
No!
Tim Pool, and
You strayed from God, inshallah!
I'm like, yeah, who's this hot chick? I'm like, Tim has a hot chick on. I'm like, yeah, it's not some like guy who's like, we gotta bomb China. I'm Donald Trump should bomb
Every
China.
day you stray from the Lord.
Yeah, it's just I feel like half of the time I'm watching Tim always is like, hey, we gotta get China. I'm like, please stop. But yeah, I'm like, who's this Blair White guy with all the? I'm like, oh, that's who Blair White. Wait, that's a dude, and I'm like, oh boy. So yeah, it was weird.
For the record, JC, Tate didn't become famous under organic means. He became famous because he was already rich. He made his money through the cam world, through basically being a kind of a facilitator for a manager for women who cam hoard, sort of like the OnlyFans managers of today. But when OnlyFans and those things came along, that business model sort of fell apart. And so he moved over to the casino business over there in Romania and those areas. He made a lot of money off of that. He made a lot of money off the crypto thing. And if you have a lot of money, you can become famous on any social media account you fucking want. All you have to do is spend some money. I can get 30,000 legitimate followers that will interact with my account and are real people tomorrow if I wanted to. All I'd need is about $5,000. So the reality is, if you want to become famous or get verified, all those things just cost
I want to
money.
be
If you have
famous.
money, that shit comes to you easy. And especially somebody like him, that has not only money but the fame aspect, because clearly he was already on a reality TV show at that point. You can go look it up on YouTube for free. He had already been on other forms of content, so he didn't rise inorganically or organically. He just rose. Just like anybody else within the zeitgeist. I don't think he's a Fed or connected to the
I don't
Fed.
think he's a Fed either. But
Um,
maybe next time around, I'll run for president so I can unite and caps and comms and and prims because we got to do that.
yeah.
And
Nah,
everybody's gonna yell at me.
the NCOMs can, I don't know. We need somebody to wash the toilets.
That's mean. We got to fight against. You know what else is in the news? If you care, if you want to get off the culture stuff, I don't know if you're interested in talking about BRICS, but BRICS isn't, to me, that's something I don't know what. People don't understand what it is. India's in BRICS. Egypt's unfortunately in BRICS. Fuck Sisi. I don't like him.
I don't know. I think BRICS makes perfect sense.
No, it doesn't. It's horrible.
If you're dealing with the hegemony in the West with NATO and with the UN Parliament and that whole system, then you sort of have to build a competitor if you're those countries.
In
Now,
my opinion,
I don't think it's smart for the countries individually, but that's not how it's being looked at because the people who are making decisions in BRICS are really China and Russia.
yeah, and that's to me what I don't like. Everybody's like, "Oh my God, Kareem, it's a new way to fight against NATO as a hegemony." Okay, but it pisses me off for two reasons. A, I'm mad at NATO for screwing everything up. Because I'm mad at NATO for destroying the Middle East and Ukraine, and then the response to this is this, and to me, this is like a power grab by Putin and Xi, who are now globalists. They can't say they're nationalists. This is a globalist institution. I don't care what people say if they care about national sovereignty and oh, we want men to be slightly more manly. Okay, whatever. This is a globalist institution. And in my opinion, a lot of these countries, while it might be good now, are going to get screwed because I wouldn't trust Xi Jinping with, a Bud Light can with Dylan Mulvaney's face on it. I think this is a pretty bad thing.
Here's the thing. I don't disagree with you, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Because none of these decision vectors are being decided from parliamentarians in a single country. This is being decided by the military force of places like China and Russia, who are looking at the grand scale of what might turn into a world war in the next 10 years and going, how can we protect ourselves from that in the future? Well, you have NATO and the UN, which are not going to allow most of the countries that are on that list to be involved with them. So instead, they're turning to something like BRICS. I don't think that's illogical. I don't think it's good, but I don't think it's illogical. I think it makes perfect sense why they would do something like that. If you're trying to fight against the West's version of that exact system, their most logical thing to do next is build a competitor that is better,
I think that
which
I think the
China is attempting to do economically.
I think the only
Which
logical
is
thing to
the
do,
funniest thing is that the
well,
communist country is doing that.
yeah, which is crazy. So I think the only logical thing to do for us is to study the Ricardian Law of Association put by Leeson to see how social cooperation works between different customary laws, common law, this Sharia law, figure that out, to figure out how different modalities of decentralization work. How do ANCAPs interact with mutualists? How does that interact with decentralized communities, free market anarchists? How does that interact with primitive communities?
And why we all do that, bricks will be built and the war will start.
I, we need the only way to save the world is through global anarchy.
So I disagree with that.
I
Absolutely.
don't.
I do. I don't think the way to
Damn it.
solve these problems are through global anarchy at all. I think the way to solve these problems is to get the power structures that currently exist within wherever it is you as a person geographically live, because that's where you need to be worried about the most, to a more liberty stance.
Yeah, I
Meaning,
agree with
yeah,
that.
it's true that if the US tomorrow, their hegemonic system turned into a libertarian one where the government was much more localized to the individual cities or towns or villages or states, even, I think you'd have a much different hegemony nationally. But that's not the case, and that's not going to happen in the US, at least not anytime soon before the next World War breaks out. And it's certainly not going to happen in Iran or China or, Russia.
We need to work
So,
towards it.
um, I agree with that, and we all need to be knowledgeable about it. But I don't think the
Global anarchy
theory.
should be the highest ideal. And then while we're doing that, we should work on relative decentralization.
Right, but this is exactly why I make the point of like, well, if the goal is making the country more liberty bound, then run as anything you can to make that happen. Do whatever dirty deed, like the title entails, that you can to make that happen, and keep it above board so that you don't get caught doing anything that you can't weasel your little head out of.
I'm not doing anything dirty to do what I have to do.
Then
I
you're
found
doing it wrong.
well, okay, fine. Sometimes I cooperate with ANCOMs and Marxists, whatever. Is that like such
Yeah, that's not dirty. That's traitorous.
a well,
No,
not like
no,
Marxists.
you're fine. I think in reality people are
Running a
gonna have
local
to.
race, man. Here's the thing: you don't have to bribe people, in my opinion, to win a city council or dog catcher or town
You
supervisor.
do in my town. so
What are you bribing? What are you doing? Like, hey, polar bear, here's a Coca-Cola. I know you and your cubs live here. Can you
no,
help for
one of
me?
the people recently who got a seat on this council most likely got it by convincing the person that held the seat before him to step down and leave and give him the seat. So I mean, it happens all the time, and it happens in city councils and larger positions
Okay,
too.
fine. But what I would say is this: once you get to the local level, you can kind Tim McMaster actually from York County put it in a really brilliant way. Funny enough, with the old Libertarian Party, but I really like what he said. People want transparency, and the closer you get, the more transparent it is. And people are like, well, local governments can be bad. Someone asked Justin Amash this, and I actually liked his answer, although I don't like him simping for the Constitution. He said, look, local doesn't mean it'll be better. There can still be tyrannies. We all know a bad family, yet I don't think we're giving up on families. Decentralization doesn't mean you fix the problem. You just made it closer to you.
Right, but can I be honest too? That answer to the question puts him in a box in which he'll never be able to get what he's saying done.
And
Because
actually, now I
the
think of it,
American people are not going to follow somebody who is going to tell them that if somebody comes in their town and does something against them, that they cannot solve that problem and there won't be somebody to protect them. And that's what that sentence says to a lot of Joe Blow American workers. So I don't like that as an answer to that question. The better answer to that question is that local governments can be bad. The Constitution is a stopgap against those. Libertarians do not want to get rid of your Constitution, rather implement it in its full use. And so the point of view there is completely shifted to the point of, no, we're going to protect you. We're going to make sure that doesn't happen, because that is the one thing the government actually can do that results in a good thing. And we have many examples of that. So I think Amash is I view Amash as a complete pussy, to be honest with you, when it comes to
I
politics.
was going to say, hey, we could run him for president as well. But
I think he'd be great if you wanted to get nowhere and do nothing.
All right, man.
I'm gonna edit this show because I'm just pissed today, and this is
What
like,
did I do?
no, it's not you. It's just other shit. I'm a bit standoffish today, but
That's
I
because
mean
you're
that's
hanging
just,
out. You know why? Because Vito vetoed you.
mm-mm.
That was a bad joke.
That was a decent joke. That was bad at the same time.
How about Dick Masterson run for president since we're out of options? Do you think he can
If
win?
Dick Masterson would run as a libertarian, I'd run him. Voters don't want to be told. They have to be responsible for themselves. The whole point is they want to outsource that responsibility to politicians so they can sit on their ass. I agree with you, JC. So my solution to that is simple. Let them sit on their ass. Give them a version of government that gives them the just amount of that action that they need to sit on their ass, and then phase out the rest of the shit. Then you work on that stuff after the fact. This is why I've said multiple times, whoever is coming into the White House and starts cutting stuff down to size, the first thing you're getting rid of can't be welfare. It can't be those programs first. Because the second you do that, you are going to turn the population against every other one of your ideals off of just principle. So you have to be prepared to time these things correctly.
All right, but
The way to attract voters is to make them think they're getting something for nothing, and then pull a fast one on them. Yeah, that's another way to look at it. Exactly. This is why I think it's smart for some people to run as Republicans and Democrats.
Okay.
So we're at the hour 5 mark. I think we can close out. I'm around tomorrow too, so if we want to do episode 40 or 55.
I can invite some of my homeboys in the coalition I'm in, and you're like, oh, I like this global anarchy. It'll be fun.
Yeah, we can have some.
We'll
people
hang
on.
out with our.
We'll try to go a little earlier tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll invite because I do want to invite some people on.
Yeah.
Could be
okay.
Could be cool.
Yeah, no, it should be fun. Well, follow me on Twitter. Follow Kareem on Twitter at Liberty or Kareem for Liberty. Even though he doesn't use it because he's a nerd. And
I'm autistic. I'm a libertarian.
We will see you guys later. Peace.